experience is to get you to gather your thoughts so that your mind and your really, since either you left school or you left whatever kind of studies that you may or may not have done, but you started working in a technical space. So not your time as a lifeguard or your time as a pizza flipper, but as a time in technical, in traffic management, in monitoring traffic, and et cetera, and you will then just gather it by the year. So the whole idea is just to try and go back to your diaries, your memory banks, your photograph albums, and just see how you can place this together. So what sort of project or what kind of place were you in when you worked with it? Can you remember the key individuals or the people? And ideally, what you need to remember is any professionals that you worked with. So those are very good in your tracking of history. Is, did you work always under a registered professional? And that registered professional be used as some form of referee coming forward? But you're going to be going back. So we just put your year one, and you can then put in there, that might be, 1980 or whatever, or 1990 or whatever it is. You would then talk about what time of that year you were onto it, because you may have been on a particular project. If you were on different projects in the same year, you can split it up, make it your own. And then you would, who were you working for? Who was your employer at the time? Ideally, some client information. So if we were working for Sunrail or MTN or KZN Roads Department or Department of Health or whoever it is, you'd have a brief information, and then you have some brief project history. A project description, briefly described. So you wouldn't put in too much detail. Remember the alternative route and the mature route is a lot of the stuff that is longer than 4 or 5 years. You can do by just the TO route, or just capturing your history at a higher level, and this will just give you the ability to show that you've gathered your thoughts, and you may have some supporting evidence of that. And then what you should describe is your brief description of the key roles and functions. And then what I would suggest you do, remember, this is not laid down by EXA. This is a suggestion from Mentoring for Success. Is what you do is try to remember key or memorable learning moments. What were things that happened? Was there a problem that happened that wasn't expected, and how did you solve the problem? Were you actually going out there to try and solve a problem that no one had solved before? Were there any interactions you had with other professionals, other suppliers, with technical equipment? Whatever it is there, just try and get your mind to put this into this kind of rich mosaic, which is your life's last 20 years in history. And then what this will do is you will then use this in the other one over here. You can then extract from there into here different project experiences, because what we will be wanting to do in the more recent years is try and give the ability for each of you, even if you're coming in the QBE route, the sort of the qualification by experience route, is you want to be able to show and provide evidence that you were improving your degree of responsibility, your degree of accountability, et cetera, et cetera. So the career experience, this initial one, this one over here, which looks at your previous 20, 25, 15 years experience or whatever, you would unpack that, and then you would then try and take the thinking from there into this one as well. As I said early on, it's all been done in the technology. So I've done the DevOps for this, and they're working on it, but it's got huge implications on the logical data model. So we just want to make sure that doesn't break something, as well as it gives you a nice user experience. It prompts you, and it will also provide much richer capability for journaling, and also it'll provide you with a very nice reporting functionality. So Jason and the team are working on that. So that was just so instead of seeing that was just I was just doing a tap dance to hold the fort there, and I see we've got Mike's got a hand up. Go, Mike.
Good afternoon, everyone. Phil, you mentioned that there were 3 spreadsheets for the gap analysis. That's for the engineer, the technologist, and the technician. For those doing the alternate route, you said that another spreadsheet would be circulated. Is that correct?
Yeah, so what we're going to be doing today is Tom and Johan are going to talk to us about the alternate route and what we actually need to have and how we need to record that. So this is the top. Can you see my screen? They're the top 3 with the learning gap analysis.
Yeah.
And then this is the career experience audit. So this is the other one but all of them, even the guys that are coming with the standard, you know, with the baseline qualification coming in, they should also complete this, but they may only have it for 3 or 4 years. But certainly your lads and lasses with 20 years experience, this is for them. This is to gather that information, to make sure that it, and what I was saying earlier is to make sure that it is of a relevant specialization area. So if they spend time as a tour guide on a mountain trail or something, that's not going to count. So while they were doing any form of specialization, they would capture that here, and then we will extract from that into what Tom and Johan are going to tell us more about. Yeah, Mike, does that explain the question?
It does, Phil. I think that, you know, the 3 other forms, the spreadsheet outlaying your history, work history, etc. That's fine. I think everyone understands that. But it's the other 3 spreadsheets. At this stage, must they be ignored by those on the alternate route and wait for the instruction from Tom and Jonathan on what they're going to be filling in going forward?
Yeah. So my suggestion is let's listen today to Johan and to Tom, and they can give us more insight into that. Our things have changed at Exim. There's been some changes in terms of the QBE and in terms of some of the legislation, which we've actually loaded into CHQ, so it is available there. So we're going to handle that. Mike, I hope by the end of the session we will have answered your question, because Tom is the legend here. I'm not sure if Johan is in here yet, but if he's not, Celestine, I'm going to suggest that you go ahead and drive the show as you've prepared. And I still don't see Johan. Maybe he's got load shedding, but Tom is more than qualified to take us through this. So Celestine, let me hand over to you, and
Okay.
and then you can get Tom in when you need to.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Sorry, just in terms of what we've prepared for today. So, I mean, there is quite a few slides for Johan around. Sorry, I just want to make sure that I open the correct presentation. So, I mean, you've done your positioning bits. I just want to make sure that everybody can see my my slides.
Yeah, I can see your slides. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not sure with regard to Tom. I know that, so all of this is just at a very high level. So I'm going to just take through to this. Maybe Tom can do his bit while we're waiting, because I saw Johan is not yet in the room.
Just clarify that. Are you going to take us through the slides, or are you just going to get to the slide on the on really the mature candidates? The most important ones to cover are the mature candidates and the alternative route, the sort of qualification by experience route. So the standard ones we can come to quickly.
Okay, so Phil, what my thinking was, I'll move to the 2 slides that Tom is going to talk to. I mean, obviously, Tom has got a lot more information except what we've got on the slides. But maybe we start with Tom, and if Johan then joins us, then we'll go back to Johan's slides.
Yeah, all good. Yeah.
To get back to Mark's question, until the individual knows whether they are applying for PREng, PR-Tech-Eng or PR-Techne, it's hard for them to look at their registration category skills gap. So I think Mark's question is, well, you know, where do they start? So I'm quite happy to talk to the process. So EXA accepted many years ago that not everybody ends up in the engineering profession having gone and either done a degree or a diploma or some formal form of study. And they do what they call recognition of prior learning via alternative means. As Phil and I call it, we talk about the QBE, qualified by experience. It's not such a straightforward process, but based on that, EXA has developed a standard, and I'll quickly show you if I can go to my share screen and we'll come back to Celestine's. But okay. Here, for example, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Okay, so this is called RO2STA. So if you look at the top of my screen, the R and it's STA stands for a standard. POL stands for a policy. It's all terminology used all the time by EXA. But in this case, you'll see it says PE, professional engineer, PT, professional technologist, and PN, which is professional technician. So it's a single standard that covers multiple levels. What I've got shown on the screen here is the table that I'm referring to. So if you have a look here, and let's take the majority of the MTM, the Basels, the Higgs, the whoever else in the room, and they decided, well, hang on, I've definitely got 20 years experience. So if you look at this, let me highlight it here, this row here, I've definitely got 20 years experience. The critical part, and that's operating at level E, is have they got 10 years of responsible experience? In other words, whose bum gets kicked? Have you taken responsibility for your own decision making, etc., etc., etc.? There, it's 20 years of work experience in the engineering, in our case, civil field. The benefit of going the technologist route is, by definition, a technologist is a specialist. So the specialists in the room, particularly the MTM cohort and some of the other SASI cohort, may find the technologist route actually easier to achieve than the technician route. So here you see no tertiary qualification and an N3. An N3 is the old TVET college, which in universities of technology start at the equivalent of N5 and upwards. So no tertiary qualification, or matric is the other. If I scroll down.
Sorry, you're gonna talk to the later dates, because I'm not that old. I'm old, but not.
Yeah. So now we go and we look at, that was for technologist. If you go to the technician option, so it's a separate one, it's Appendix B, you'll see for the same level, it's 10 years of experience and only one at a responsible level. So a lot of the MTM cohort, this may be the route to go to get the registration recognition. The only problem is that a technician is generally viewed as a generalist. So they should have some knowledge of surveying, some knowledge of materials, some knowledge of engineering related stuff. And that may be where in the gap analysis, we've got to enhance the knowledge that is lacking from the experience that's been gained. But if you look down, it goes on, you can see there's the old T1, T2, there's your N qualifications. Then you go down, here's your, it says there, NDIP is a benchmark qualification, a DIP-Eng is a benchmark qualification, a DIP-Eng Tech is a benchmark qualification, but it calls for longer. This is the current 280 credit diploma that is being done by DUT and CUT. Then your higher diploma, your BTech, your advanced diploma, and your BEng Tech, which is the new degree. And I'm looking at the technician's one. So many of you, the base qualification possibly will be matric. The decision that needs to be made is, do you have 20 years experience and 10 at a responsible level? That's competency level E. If the answer is yes, then we push you the technologist route. Then you go back to the gap analysis and you fill in the technologist template. And a lot of it's the outcomes are identical, as Phil has explained more than once. But instead of it being complex for engineer, it becomes broadly defined for technologist, and for technician, it's well defined. So we need to work out for each of you, which of these boxes, for want of a better word, are we going to plug you in? Then we can start to build your track record and start looking at what is missing and what is not missing. Celestine, can you just go back to your slides now?
So Mike, just while we're going back to Celestine's slides, on the on those spreadsheets, the 3 spreadsheets, the only thing that changes between the 3 categories is not the competency group A or the outcome, the learning outcome 1, 2, 3, or whatever the numbers. The things that change are the competency indicators and the range statements, and they will give they will use the terminology complex engineering, and complex engineering just means it's out of the box. It's in no way standardized. It requires blue sky thinking and innovative problem solving, etc., etc. Whereas the technologist in the broadly defined means it's within an area of specialization, and you don't stray out of that area, and you do it, and well defined from a technician perspective. So those three spreadsheets, we would decide where they are. So the years of history and the degrees of responsibility, increase in responsibility, will help us take a decision with yourselves and your mentors, etc., as to where ideally you should plug in, go into the technician route or technology route, just as Tom's explained right now. So Tom, back to you and Celestine.
Yeah, so the bottom line is anybody who has a 4-year engineering degree from a traditional university, a BSc or a BEng, and I think Emma and a few of the others in the room fall into that category, you have got the benchmark qualification in order to pursue the PREng route. If you've got a BTech, that's the old 2-year part-time 1 FTE credit, 8 subject courses that was followed the national diploma, that's the old S courses from 5 or 6 years ago now, then you've got the benchmark qualification to go the PR technologist route. If you've only got a national diploma or an equivalent to a national diploma as a benchmark qualification, then you go the technician's route. But if you've got a national diploma and lots of experience, then you could go the technologist route via the experience option. So what we are saying is those that have a benchmark qualification will tick the box appropriate to the benchmark qualification, but they can revisit it if they've got vast experience. Those who do not have a post-schooling qualification, the easiest route would be to go the technician route because it's less time and it's probably easier because it's at a well-defined complexity level than at a broadly and or complex complexity level. What I can tell you is that there is no alternative routes, although E17P supposedly allows it for somebody with, for example, a BTech and Oliver and a Vota and a few others to go via the alternative route to get to PREng. That is, we call it the windy road with lots of rock falls and very, very few lights on and the door slam shut when you get there. So I would go the simplest route in each of your individual cases. Then the next thing is the way in which you present the actual evidence, and that's, I think, what Phil and Johan are going to focus on. Just check the next slide, Louise. I don't know what else you've got there.
I'm sorry, I'll switch now.
Okay, so you know what we are saying is that X's approach is not that you must have this or you out. X is acknowledged, and that's those tables I was showing you. And maybe what I must do, Phil, is have we loaded the standard up onto the portal?
Yeah, everything that we've got from yourself, Francisca, and the latest stuff that Johan found for us. Johan's loaded that RO2 up, and we've also loaded some notes that Johan's made for us on that. And Johan's now in the group, so we have Johan. We have Johan in the house. So that is in the. It is in the under the program notes. So it is viewable to all the candidates and the mentors.
Okay. So the non-baseline qualification people have to be able to demonstrate by means of the experience and the exposure that they've had over their working life, how they have accumulated the equivalent knowledge for somebody with a benchmark qualification. And it's not a ticking a box to say you've got a Maths 1 and a Maths 2 course. It's got how have you solved engineering problems at the appropriate degree of complexity, well-defined, broadly defined, complex, that you didn't need that knowledge in order to do the work. You've acquired the knowledge by alternative means. You could have done, you know, I know Google, you can find more or less anything, but however, you've just got to be able to logically defend how you are managing. So if we take Mike as an example, Mike is registered as a professional technologist in civil engineering, but all of his academic qualifications are in surveying. So Mike had to also go the alternative route and show that despite the fact that he didn't do structural design, didn't do transportation, didn't do X, Y, and Z, he's acquired the necessary knowledge in order to deliver at the end result of the product.
Tom, I just want to come in quickly and then welcome Johan. So I'll let Celestine, because they've been preparing the slides, and then Johan can chat to you here. But I just want to give everyone a couple of analogies so that they understand what we are trying to do. The first one is to give you the example of the quantity surveyors. So in engineering, we have 3 categories. We in fact have more categories because we have the alternate and the RPL, etc. The quantity surveyors don't have that. You either have an honours degree, which allows you to become a candidate professional quantity surveyor, or you have to do 18 bridging modules. And the 18 bridging modules are essentially the gap between whatever diploma you did. And Tom, you might want to mute there. From whatever diploma or schooling you did, and coming up, there's a bit of noise. I wonder if everyone can just make sure you mute. The idea behind the 18 bridging modules is it gives you broad exposure across more than just very quantity surveying defined. So you have to have a company. There's some basic sort of calculation stuff, and etc. So that allows QSs that don't have the minimum baseline qualification to do what's known as a bridging, and it's called the 18, and it's the 18 skills modules. Now, Celestine and myself have got we've got a similar but different route ourselves. Both of us, Celestine has a double a master's in BCom and in leadership development, etc. I've got a master's in theoretical structural analysis, but both of us are master human resource professionals. And we have that with the SABPP, which is the South African Board of People Practices. And although I've never studied, I have no qualifications in HR at all. But we are able to, through broad exposure, and able to show that we have got a baseline qualification, but we've also got many years managing people or developing people solutions. So we get that honorary designation. So what we're trying to do here is work with EXA. And what's really good here is we're looking at the standards here, but we also have a very strong alliance with EXA. So between Tom's relationships and my relationships, we've got Dr. Francisca Botma, who is the head of regulatory in EXA. We've got Johan Pinar, who's welcome in here as our resident EXA expert. We've got ways of finding out how we will navigate this journey. And I think what 2 things are important to say before I hand back over to Celestine is that if we decide that you want to go the technologist route, which is the specialization route, which, as Tom has suggested, might be the route, and we think that you've got the right credentials to be able to do that kind of route, what we're going to look at is where EXA recognizes an area of specialization. And as long as we ring fence your journey, showing that you were increasingly becoming a specialist in a very defined, recognized area of civil engineering, and that you have acquired the level of competence and professionalism which no longer relies on a baseline qualification. You are clearly an expert, and what it's going to be looking at is, have you been performing that work unsupervised at level E for a sufficient amount of time to be able to verify that you are without any additional supervision, you could go forth and make very responsible engineering decisions. So that's what we're trying to do, and what we will do. The other group that we haven't talked about at all yet is the academic route. And Dr. Francisca Botma will be coming back from leave this week. And we are then going to have a session with Tom, myself, Marianne van der Skuren, and a couple of others, and Francisca, on finding out exactly where the working group, the higher education working group, and where they are with EXA, and what the road to registration is for the academics. So we don't have that journey clearly mapped right now, but it is on my and Tom's and Francisca's radar screen to get it mapped as soon as possible. So if you're in here, Cheryl, and some of the people here as academics, don't think we've forgotten about you. You're very much on our radar screen. The road forward is just not clarified yet. Tom, is there anything you want to say on the academic route before we hand over to Celestine?
Phil, I think you've covered it. So the bottom line is we are trying to get a blueprint from EXA as to, if somebody in the traditional engineering space is doing the category A outcomes, which is solving engineering problems, managing engineering projects, and so on and so on and so on. How do you convert that statement into the life of an academic? And the argument that EXA and at the workshop with the higher education institutions was, well, lecturers set exams, they set projects, they set practicals, they do this, they do that. Now the question is, okay, but if you set an exam and you set it for a technician, does that mean you're operating only at a well-defined level, even though you yourself are actually operating as a professional engineer level because you have a BEng? That's the kind of clarification where Phil and I can easily, with Johan, map that kind of interpretation in practice, but it's not that easy. I mean, I was an academic for 30 years, and even when somebody asks me, well, how do you do it? I'm sitting thinking, well, I've never actually thought about it. So that's what we want to make sure, so that we don't go and say, do X, do Y, do Z, simply state you set exams. It's going to need to be more detailed than that. What about the outcomes that involve environmental stuff? The ethics stuff you can handle. You're all well aware of the plagiarism and all the other things that go on and so on and so on. But we want to be able to create a blueprint for anybody in an academic environment. And it's not only civil, we are dealing with across the disciplines. This is the kind of work they had to have undertaken to benchmark into technician, technologist, engineer. That's what we are working on. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that Tom and I are exerting our as best we can with huge deference and respect to the EXA people. We're trying to, and I have to say that they really respect our years of experience over here. So we will have a level of insight into it, but they also quite, and I see your hand, Cheryl. They also have quite a strong leaning at the moment to avoid external influence. They want to talk directly to the academics, and they want to talk directly to EXA, and then they will bring in external, the VAs, the specialist service providers, and things like that. So it's work in progress. It is urgent. It's pressing. We need to know that. So in the interim, what we will be doing with the academics is we're going to treat you like that success is failure is not an option and success is on the horizon. So we're going to ask you just to start to do exactly the same process, to capture your years of academia, the kind of projects and the publications, what your NRF rating is, how you've improved your rating over time, what kind of things you've published, what are you doing in the teaching and learning space, and just capture stuff that you think provides evidence of increasing responsibility or areas of profound research that could be interpreted as analysis and complex problem solving, etc., the activities you've had managing and teaching people at different levels. And if you can start to gather your thoughts once we get the blueprint from EXA, and which is something that the academics will have to sign off, so it should hopefully be a solution, then you've got the thinking, and you can still participate in all these sessions. But Cheryl, you had your hand up. Go. Cheryl.
Competency 0. Hi, can you hear me?
We can now. Yep.
Hi, technical competency 0 on my side. Only observation I wanted to make, aside from our comments in the chat box, was when we talk about our professional experience outside of education, it's vetted or written off or testified to by a professional engineer or similar. Now, in academia, I'm betting that if you've ever applied for promotion or anything similar, or some educational award or something like that, that type of experience is really what will be sought. But they are not registered engineers to sign that off, and that for me is the burning question. How does that academic experience get vetted when the very people that we report to are not necessarily, and more than likely, not engineers? I'll leave that on the table.
So sorry, just a quick response, Phil. So Cheryl, the first thing I have made very, very adamant, violently, vociferously to EXA is when I look at who they had at that session, they were predominantly researchers. And I've said to EXA, you cannot base your registration criteria against a research criteria, which many institutions do for promotion. You must remember there are people who are teachers and who lecture in terms of the chalk and talk in the classroom activity. So yes. EXA and Francesca have acknowledged that. Secondly, when they work out what is it that an academic must do as an equivalent, they need to also work out who is going to take the professional responsibility. Is it somebody who is a professor or an associate professor? Is it an HOD? Is it the dean? Does that person have to be registered, or are they going to accept by the same discussion that they are recognized academics and therefore can sign off on an academic endeavor? We will get those answers for you as part of this process.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
So I'm conscious of the time, and I'm going to hand over to Louise, to Celestine shortly with Johan, and bring in Johan so he can add his magic as well. So let me just, before I do that, what I want to tell you as well is, and thanks to Tom, we've got a WhatsApp group going, but what we need to do is we need to also make sure that we have conversations that are relevant to only some groups. So the academics will be asking lots of questions, and sometimes will want to share stuff which is irrelevant to the other groups, and so we don't want to create a noisy space. So what I've done is, I'm just going to share my screen here with you quickly. What I've done is I've started the creation of this, which is our technology, and I'll explain it in a bit more detail just now. So can you see my screen, Celestine?
Yes, Paul?
So this is called Nauculi. This is the second tech you're going to get. This is like a sophisticated WhatsApp. It's like a structured knowledge exchange. So we call it Nauculi. It's used for social learning, and it's used for structured sort of everyday context sharing. So this is where you're not going to be sharing only vertically with your mentor and looking at your documentation and looking at the process of EXA and the TERs and all the rest of it. This is not that one. This is where you want to ask a question, but you want to be able to come back to all the answers to your question and not have to scroll backwards and forwards in WhatsApp to try and make sense of everything. So I've set this up. I've started setting up MASELULEKANE. And so I've just done a post over here. I'm coming in as a full essay. And so you can post a picture, you can post a diagram, etc., etc. And so what will happen is when you, and we'll deploy this probably later this week. It's a PWA or a progressive web app. You will open this on your mobile phone, not on your laptop, although it can work on your laptop. So if you're one of the slightly older people that prefer the benefit and the speed of working on a laptop, I'm showing it to you on a laptop, and because it's a progressive web app, it'll work fine on a laptop, on a Galaxy iPad, on a tablet, on a Galaxy tablet or an Apple iPad or a mobile phone. The benefit of this is you've always got your phone and you can always ask a question in that moment. So what I'm busy doing, just to show you, is I'm busy setting up, when you get your app, we're just going to send it to you. We can send it to you actually through the WhatsApp group. We'll send you the URL. You can open up. If you are an Apple user, please make sure you copy and paste the URL and you open it in your Safari browser. Don't open it in any other default browser that you may use on your phone. If you open it in Safari, it will then take you through the process of embedding the icon on your phone, and then it works very nicely. Otherwise, if you open on your laptop, your Galaxy, whatever, it will take you through. So when you get it, it will log you in. It will send you an OTP or a one-time password. There'll be 5 areas. You just fill in the number, boof, and you'll go in. And just to very quickly show you over here on the right-hand side is you have the hamburger menu. And when you go into the hamburger menu, we'll do a proper training on this when you go in there as well. So that's just to show you how this will work, why I'm doing this. And I'll tell you why I'm setting it up, is I want to be able to, if I go and ask a question over here, I've restructured the themes, Tom. That's interesting. Why is that not working? I've got the wrong one open. Sorry, let me just get the other one open. So I've restructured no, that's Whitby. Sorry. Okay, let me not waste time with this. I've restructured the themes here so that they will be compatible with what we want. And what we will do then is in the share with, we will have 4 categories. So we'll have the standard route. We'll have the mature candidate route, who are going to be more focused on the TEOs and how you capture your experience there. We'll have the alternative route, and we'll have the academic route. Now, you will all be part of one group. You'll all be part of sharing all the conversations, etc., over and over and over. But when you want to ask a question which is only relevant to the academics, you will go in there and we will associate you with the right downline. So you have a horizontal sharing for everybody at one level, but you also have a discipline specific or a category specific theming as well. And so in there we will have themes like, let me just see if I've got MHQ loaded up over here. These are the themes I've just loaded up now. So what you'll have is we'll have human factors. So human factors will be all of the conversations we're going to have with you, which will build your baseline understanding of what goes wrong in engineering. So this is based on international research, and it would be a good thing for you to have a general contextual awareness, even if you're an academic, to understand what are the 10 biggest pitfalls across the world that actually cost $450 billion a year in extensions of time, claims and disputes. So that's a whole thing we'll run there. There'll be an open discussion. So that's our version of WhatsApp. There's an open discussion. We'll also have then all the questions that are relevant to professional registration. And so if you've got anything, or we want to share anything, if there's an update from EXA, if there's an update from SACP-CMP, for if any of you want to also do a project management registration at some point in time, this is where we will handle it in that conversation. We'll also then eventually have the project simulations. So Tom and I are talking about how we can start that process. We'll be getting back to Mike on that soon. We finished all the templates. So thank you, Celestine, for that. I'm going to share them with Tom. And that's where we will unpack other projects, old MTM projects or old Sunrail projects. What this will do is it'll give the academics a wonderful space to come and play in the world of the practitioner space, in the world of work. So it'll give you some insights into the kinds of conversations that happen and what goes wrong and how people handle it, etc., etc. So that's where the project simulations are. In this instance, there'll be more. I'm trying to get ACOM to come in and share Molotto Road with us over here, but we will work closer with Sunrail on getting more simulations. This has worked very, very, very successfully. And then we'll have a space which will be the broader engineering world of roads and transportation. And within that, we'll have the disciplines of the traffic management and speed averaging and all of that sort of kind of thing. And then we're going to have another conversation thread, because as of next week, Celestine and Louise, please confirm, I think next week we start the soft skills. I think we've almost done, it might be the week after, but certainly within 2 weeks, we've done all the technology, all the process, the platform, the program sort of introduction, and we'll be actually starting the MASELULEKANE rollout, which is the soft skills every month, the candidacy progress every month, and then either a simulation session or a human factors session. And what that will do is, besides keeping you on track from a progress, it will give you an insight into some sort of what we call the 5IR or Fifth Industrial Revolution soft skills and competencies. Tom has been good enough to get us accredited with EXA, so you'll get CPD points from those as of 1 or 2 weeks from now. In fact, you all get CPD anyway, because of this program has 5 CPD points. And so that will start to happen to build your bigger picture. It'll build your management skills, your leadership skills. It'll build your emotional intelligence, your planning skills. It's a great way to build you, not just as a professional, but also you as a passionate person in the industry. And then I've also got another theme there, because it's so relevant now, is the whole of the technology evolution with AI, with NLP, with GPT, data analytics, etc. And we feel that we need to have this as a conversation, because there need to be warnings in certain areas like engineering, where we cannot just take face value of, if you put something into Chat GPT or whatever it is that you're going to get an honest and correct answer back, because it's picking up everything that's out there. And in probably 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but certainly I'm hoping before the end of September, we will enhance all of these with AI. So we'll have the ability to interact. We will get hold of each one of you, and we will ask one of you to take responsibility to be a champion, a knowledge champion in an area. And you will have the ability to have a chat bot that will work with you, and we'll teach you how to do the prompts and things, and you can augment the questions, the conversation. It becomes a fun place. And what it means is the more you share, the more the crowd will like what you do, and you will raise up and you go up and you'll get score and things like that. And then we'll have fun incentives and fun awards and all the rest of it. So I just wanted to show you that that's hot off the press. It'll come to you this week. And then we'll have a session on how to get going on it. So just very quickly, okay, Celestine, I'm overstayed my welcome. It's over to you. Cheryl's got a hand up again.
Hi, Cheryl.
Old hand, sorry.
Okay.
It looks
No
beautiful from this side. Okay. Celestine, you go.
Yeah, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I think just in full positioned the importance of us starting to record our experience, etc., specifically around understanding or making sure that you capture your experience and especially being able to link that back to your degrees of responsibility, etc. Now, Johan is at a later stage going to, once you've done your experience audit and do your gap analysis, Johan is going to do another session where he's going to go into a lot more detail around how to write our TERs and how to structure it around the 11 outcomes and the different degrees of responsibility. But for today, Johan is just going to take us through how do we distinguish between well-defined, broadly defined, and complex engineering. Also look at, how to give some high-level guidance in terms of how would you capture and record your experience that you've acquired over the duration of your career. So, Johan, I'm not going to take up much of your time. I know that you've got just about 30 minutes left. And then also provide some time for questions and answers. If you have questions, you can please raise them. I will just let Johan know, or alternatively capture it in the chat box, and we can then get back to that. So, Johan, without any further delays, I am going to hand over to you, and I'm just going to quickly share the presentation.
Celestine, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I just remembered that you did a whole lot of work on Mentimeter. If Johan finishes earlier, or if people want to stay later, if you have set up Mentimeter, let's still do that process that you decided, because then we've got that as evidence of any of the targeted questions that people have got that they may not have had a chance now, if you've got that set up.
No, so I've actually not set it up for today because when we had the discussion, when you let me know that Tom is also just going to give that background about the RPL route, etc., I then spoke to Johan, because Johan and I met this morning, and I said to him, I'll rather leave that for another session, that we can get input for Johan for his next presentation, but I haven't
100%.
prepared the Menti for today.
Okay, no problem. Okay, all over to you. Thank you. Thanks for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Johan. All yours.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity. I've listened to a lot of information, and I'm getting worried. My first suggestion before I start would be that we compartmentalize each category. The academics, then your technologists, technicians, and then the alternative route people. And linked with the alternative route would be the RPL route. And I'm not aware, I don't know if you are all aware of the policy statement for the RPL route. So that is the group of people that don't have any engineering qualification. So that just for the start of things. Now, when we start talking about professional registration, to get PR behind your name, there is a standard route. You must have the entry-level qualification for the category of registration concerned. That is the educational standard which you have to meet, which Tom has also spoken about and has more experience than I can have on it. Then you must get the necessary exposure, having obtained the necessary variety of exposure to the full life cycle of engineering projects, from conceptualization, planning, design, implementation, operation, maintenance, closure. That is the traditional route. And if you go the PR route, doesn't matter, technician or engineer, you have to get that type of exposure. But just leave the academics aside for a moment. Then competence. How do you demonstrate your competence? There's 11 outcomes. It's an outcomes-based system, as you probably know, and that will be assessed by Access evaluating committees. That is to determine if you have obtained the necessary competency standards, in other words, practical standards in the work situation. Then responsibility is actually, professional growth. Have you obtained progressively more engineering responsibility in the practical work situation? In other words, demonstrated professional growth over a period of more than 3 years after obtaining the entry-level qualification. So that's the direct route. Okay, let's go for the next one, Celestine. Now, guidance on the recording of experience. We actually have a more broader presentation on this, but when you apply, you have to complete an application form, and the heart of the application form is your TERs or the TEOs. Now, training and experience report are for those people with less than 10 years of experience, and the TEOs is for people with more than 10 years of experience. And as far as the TEOs are concerned, that is actually your mature candidate. We mustn't mix up mature candidate with alternative route candidates or people with lots of experience. That is the definition of a mature candidate. If he or she has obtained more than 10 years of practical engineering experience after obtaining the entry-level qualification. So in this application form, obviously a TO or TR, you provide a factual record of your main periods of your development from graduation to applying for registration, and identify periods where the applicant took responsibility at the required level. So, and kindly note that do not just list projects. It must be based on experience periods. In other words, for the assessors at the end of the day to determine your professional growth from you started as a youngster till you're now in your middle age or wherever. Then your training and experience summary. That is where we find a lot of applicants coming through. Then they overlap their periods of training. You must remember, you will be required to indicate, say, your period 1 on your training and experience report is from January to end of December. It's 52 weeks. There are only 52 weeks in a year. So you can't, if you worked on 2 or 3 projects, you can't come with a project that you started in June and which went over into the next year and then claim the next year's number of weeks as well. So, but that is something practical which we can elaborate on at a later stage. So you must record your experience on distinct periods of training and work during your career up to the time of application. And no experience period may overlap, because your TES, you will record all your experience on the TES, and the number of weeks or months must exactly correspond with your TERs and TEOs which you prepared. Next one. Now, as you all know, Thomas also touched on that, the difference between the 3 categories of registration. There are competency indicators or descriptors, which are broadly described in Excel documentation. We don't have time to go into that today. Complex engineering activities, that requires, in the eyes of Excel, fundamental and specialized engineering knowledge. It's intellectual in nature, and you must have the ability to work completely out of standards. They refer to an engineer as a dreamer or an innovator. Then the technologist category, broadly defined engineering activities. As I say, there is a descriptor in the documentation. Just in short, it requires coherent and detailed engineering knowledge underpinning the technology area and is implementation orientated. You are allowed to work partially outside standards and specifications, provided that the technologist can justify it on account of his or her training and experience. They are the so-called doers or appliers of known technology. And then at the technician level, well-defined level, they can solve their problems by practical engineering knowledge underpinned by the related theory and is repetitive in nature. And they can only work within standards and specifications. They are the so-called fixers on the ground and a very important member of the engineering team. Next one. Then engineers may either complete their TRs, which form part of the application form, as I've mentioned, and there's the form numbers, or the template TR, which form part of the registration documentation of EXA. The new document there is R03 PRO PC, PC standing for All Professional Competencies document at all three levels. Then remember that you have to demonstrate an integrated performance of all outcomes in your TERs. As I've mentioned in the first slide, you must indicate that you have met all 11 outcomes which are listed in the EXA documentation. Next one. Now, on recording the experience, the TR for technologists, Form B 2.1, actually gives a clear indication under the 6 headings of how to structure the information which is required in about 430 words per TR period. So you don't have to write a book on a certain period of time. Please remember that the outcome criteria number, there's a difference between the technologist and the engineer section. Technologists have to indicate an outcome criteria number under the specific outcome number on the right-hand side of the TR template. That's just a practical suggestion, which we also find people make a lot of mistakes. Then thirdly, it's imperative for applicants for PR technologist registration to have a good look at Appendix A attached to their discipline-specific training guideline document. There's the document number as well, R05. PT, you will not be able to indicate the criteria numbers of the 11 outcomes which you are describing on your TERs if you haven't studied this discipline-specific training guideline document. Right, next one. Then for the technician, they differ and it's actually more easily to complete their application form C2.1 TR, which forms part of the application form for technician and is easy to fill in under the 4 headings indicated. So there is some guidance there. It's also very important for applicants for technician registration to have a good look at the Appendix A, which is also attached to the discipline-specific training guide for technicians, and that's document R05, Appendix APN, which will give you a very good idea how to word your reports. Next one.
Sorry, Johan, that is how far we got, because remember the rest was going into the actual outcome. So I'm not sure if there's anything else, just in terms of questions from the people in the room. Because the next ones go into the alternative route that Tom already spoke to. Is that? Oh my goodness. Sorry, people. Just is there any? I can't. I don't see any hands or any questions.
There's no hands, Celestine, so far. I think everybody's either gobsmacked or completely confused or running away scared. I'm not sure which.
Nah, we've got Oliver. He's no longer panicking. Celestine, what I suggest.
He said, "Don't panic. It's too late." He's already panicking.
All of the above.
Celestine, what I suggest is that you just let Johan talk a little bit about his experience. To everyone, sorry, what I omitted to do here is really properly introduce Johan. You all know Tom. Tom's like the living legend of the civil engineering industry, but there are unsung heroes in South Africa who have given large parts of their life to producing excellence in engineering. And Johan's one of those unsung heroes. I met him 10 years ago, maybe longer. And Johan was for 13 years or 14 years, he was the head of registrations at EXA itself. So he was head of all professional registrations, and he was the manager in charge of CPD. So he has incredible experience, and he also has got the experience where he's seen over many years the chances who have tried to come through and the pitfalls of people, etc., etc. So Johan will approach this from a doing it right first time process, which adds enormous value to all of us, because having Johan in the team means that we've got someone who is really, really knowledgeable at the nuances of the language of writing TEOs and TESs and TERs. Because as Johan has shown ABB and ACOM and WBHO and all our clients over time, is the way you write it in the first person and the way you choose your wording, a competent assessor will pick up whether you actually were doing the work and performing the work, or you were contributing, or whether you were just a passenger and you're trying to claim a level of responsibility and a level of accountability that you aren't really due. Because what you've got to understand is when you come to write your ER, your engineering report, which will be part of your professional interview process, they're going to be checking that your TERs lead to the same story that you're going to tell in your engineering report and your professional interview, etc., etc. So don't, this is a lot to pick up right now if it's something that you haven't been focused on for 20 years. And we're here to help you. And we have no expectation of getting you registered by Wednesday next week. So this is a bit of a journey. We have to do a position audit to find out where we are with everyone. And so that's what this is the process of just finding out what Joseph's Technicolor Dreamcoat actually looks like. And so those of you with the fortunate enough to have the privilege of a baseline conversation qualification, you're going to be very easy to manage and hold your hands. The others are going to be different and longer, and there will be some groups that are the same. There'll be some groups that won't. As Johan says, we will manage those groups, which I was sort of trying to explain a little bit earlier with the Nakili, is we will allow you to be in the whole group, but you'll also be able to have, let's call it category-specific conversations, because the answers to those conversations, the templates we might send you, the stories and the sharing may be irrelevant to someone else, okay? So we'll do that from a discipline and a category-specific point of view, but we want to, as much as possible, share the love between all of us, because the contextual understanding and what's known as associative learning is going to be very rich to all of you. And specifically for the academics who are going to be immersed in day-to-day conversations. And it's good for the practitioners to also pick up some of the research-based nuances and things like that. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to check, Johan, do you feel you want to talk to us a little bit about your interpretation of the
academics,
the alternative route, or even the academic route, given that the academic is completely unsolved at this stage? Do you want to talk a little bit about the alternative route and the academic route, just from a level of comfort that you have?
Yeah, you know, my experience is actually a bit aged, I must admit. But luckily, I was part of the implementation of the new registration system when it became outcomes-based from 2012 to 2016, when the new system came into operation. But let's just first touch on the academic route. You know, academics normally, they have the baseline qualifications, they lecture, but they also do practical work. And I've pulled out a few documents which was found to be acceptable when I was still sitting in all these registration committees of EXA for each discipline and in the different categories. Academic supervised final year projects, I just want to read it down for you. You must preferably supervise postgraduate students, be aware of health, safety and environmental legislation. You must have an awareness of conditions of contract. You must project a professional attitude, that is to operate, make engineering judgments and make responsibilities expected of a professional engineer. Now, this is aimed at the engineer category. We'll get to technologists a bit later. And then, during those days, we had quite a number of academics that registered professionally. They also do consulting work, outside the university or the tertiary environment. They also plan, design, and develop certain projects, be it in a supervisory or in a lower capacity. They manage workshops, especially in the mechanical engineering environment. They execute or research projects, and the results, preferably, you must indicate which you have published. It includes application of practical training elements. But then let's get to the technologist level, lecturers lecturing at UOT and applying for PR Tech should at least lecture subjects at a BTech level in order for their experience to be considered at that level. That was the requirement in the committees at that stage. But as I say, I've been retired now for 8 years, so maybe the policies have changed. My knowledge up to today, and as well as what I've now noted on the alternative routes, comes from the latest EXA documentation that's available on the web. But let's just go then to the technician category. Their lecturers must preferably have a qualification at one level higher than lecturing at national diploma students. Example, they must have a BTech degree at least. They must preferably present an industry-based project when they apply for registration. That was the policy decision at the time by the engineering committee for registering technicians. Then they must at least report on the supervision of projects done by their students. So that's just to touch on the academic route as it existed, and I believe it still exists in that fashion. If it applies the same, then they haven't published that in any of EXA's documentation or in the people with which I had discussions on the matter. And it's not a problem, to have 10 years of experience. That's actually an advantage. And that is the mature route. They can make use of the TEOs. In other words, you write your report for, say, 5-6 years of experience in terms of 12 bullet points. But at the end of your whole application summary, and including your TRs, you must have 3 years of more expanded information. So you have to prepare TRs for a 3-year period. Say you have worked for 20 years in a lecturing position, then you have to record about 17 years in TEO format, and then just the last 3 years to indicate, say, some of the points that I've mentioned for academics here.
Johan, can I just allow, Tom has got his hand up. Tom, if you can.
Johan, those guidelines that were applicable, the ones you've just outlined for the 3 categories, is that
Yes.
straight out of a current EXA policy, or is that just based on your experience with the Central Reg committees?
That's right, with Central Reg. So I don't know if they have changed. As you know, they don't have professional advisory committees for each discipline. They only have a central registration committee. So I would suggest, if you know someone there, that you must just make sure.
But what you've just said, is it in a document somewhere? Because Phil, it seems to me that what Johan has just outlined is what we are referring to as the blueprint, and I think it makes a lot of sense what he's just explained. I'm pretty sure most of the academics in the session will listen to what you've just said and say, oh, okay, if that's what I'm expected to do as an academic, then it's a lot easier than this, you know, how do I convert what I read in the RO2 and make it applicable to an academic? So, but I presume it's not actually written in document. Was it something Hugh Hanrahan worked on, or?
No, the information I got for this is actually a presentation which I made at SASSI about 13 years ago. And I consulted with, amongst others, Prof. Hugh Hanrahan, and then the chairpersons of the registration committee for technologists, Terry Stedworthy at the time, and my mind slipped now on the technician chairperson at that time, to have a good reflection, you know, to cover all 3 categories.
Okay, so
Thomas, I think
yeah, Phil, maybe what I'm saying is we can maybe help Francesca and her academic colleagues by saying, look, here is what was always acceptable, and I'll use the word diplomatically. What do you want to change to this to make it current day acceptable? Because what I'm experiencing with EXA is a lot of the work and the let's call it the gatekeeping is being done by an administrator, and no due disrespect to them. But the administrator sitting in the Central Reg office receive an application, and let's say one of our current MTM NUCs via the scenic route apply. They will immediately look and say, but where's this person's diploma? If it's for technician, they don't have a diploma. They don't really themselves know that RO2 SDA policy exists, and that they must look at, okay, but hang on, they don't have the diploma, but they've got 30 years, 40 years, however many years experience. I don't want to age anybody in the session, and therefore I must look at it from a different perspective. But if we go to EXA and say, or Fran, and say, listen, you know, this was the criteria, surely they can get a quicker result, because these, you know, when you get academics, it becomes a 25-year lifetime research project. We need quicker answers than that, Phil.
Tom, as Johan was talking, I suddenly thought, well, you know what? Why are we reinventing the wheel where there's been an acceptable journey to registration for academics before? And so all it needs, Tom, in the absence of talking to Francisca right now, as you know, I'm angling to have a session to the Central Reg, because I want them to accept that simulations are real, even if they don't like the word simulation, and we turn it to a due diligence or a value engineering or a reconstruction and review project or something. It's real engineering done of real projects that really exist under the auspices of very real, live, breathing professionals. So it is as close as reality. It just happened 4 or 5 years ago. There is absolutely no reason why it shouldn't be acceptable. But we just have to, you know, when we're talking to administrators, we have to explain in a way that they are comfortable, that we're not trying to pull the wool over their eyes. But it seems like there were very acceptable models, and precedent has been set before, and we must go through it. But I don't think it's the role of this session now to explain what we're going to do with EXA. I think what's really important, and Johan, thank you for that. I think that was really valuable. Hopefully it's given the academics some insight into what you can start to think to prepare. Outside of your academic space, think about any work that you have done, which is of any kind of consultative route or any advisory route where you've been working in industry or on projects or lecturing in any particular areas. And that's what that career experience audit was meant to do. Just think about where you may get the benefit of years and years of specialization, of history of work, etc., that with Johan's help and the knowledge of whatever comes out of the academic working groups with EXA, which we will hopefully have an ability to also influence, is that we can then guide you in how to write it up. Very often it's not what you say, it's actually how you say it, and that'll get us through the gates. I think is important. Celestine, Johan, thank for that. That was very good, very useful. Celestine, what's next on the menu? Are you going to do a quick, now that the thinking was, if I remember correctly, the thinking was that we would use this, and so for everybody in the session, the reason we need the position audit is it helps you decide on your goals. So we just wanted to spend a few minutes on showing you how the goal functionality works. And Celestine, I'm assuming that's still on the cards. Is that correct?
Yes, Paul, that's correct.
100%. Okay, I'm going to shut up and listen to you. Go for it.
Okay, so I'm just going to quickly stop my presentation as is and go into my, sorry, Phil, I just need to.
No, 100%. I'll fill the space. So while Celestine's getting herself set up, what's really important is please put in the chat here if anybody has not logged into CHQ or doesn't have the ability to get into CHQ, because it's important that we just get that. We need to get all the technical glitches and all the emails and all the firewall issues and all of that. We need to get that behind us so that we've got a common portal and we're beginning to share everything in a common portal. Mike, you've got a hand up?
Yeah, Phil, just while we're waiting, just a question that I think is of concern to everybody. I've given you a list of projects that our NTM Nuke 1 have specialized in over time, and as well as Michelle from Sunroll. Now, that list of projects that I've given you, how can we be guaranteed that EXA are going to accept those as criteria for filling in all the requirements?
Mike, there's no way to be able to give you a guarantee on EXA's behalf. So when I asked for that list, the idea behind that list is to go and source mentors who have that kind of experience and can add to experiential learning. It certainly wasn't to go and extract guarantees from EXA. However, because we have now got that, the EXA is not prescriptive in the type of engineering work you're doing, as long as it leads to the marrying of the competency indicators and the range statements of whatever the category is. And if it can be shown to be a subset and a specialization area of civil engineering, EXA is not going to be, they don't have the skills to decide whether that represents civil engineering or not. Now, I've had a look at your list. Clearly, that's a very specialized area of civil engineering. There's absolutely no argument in it. Getting a guarantee from EXA is not possible. But being able to write up TERs that address the competency indicators and can be mapped against the various outcomes is highly possible. And that's where the gap analysis comes in, because then we will work out where amongst the academics or amongst the alternative route, where there is, let's say, no exposure to, let's just as an example, say governance and ethics or ESG, sustainability, etc., etc. If we find that there are groups of people that, because of the nature of their work, either specialization work or the academic work, are just not being exposed to real world issues out there, because it's not what they're being exposed to, that's very easy to fill with the simulations, which we will do. So the areas where it's, like a private public participation on big projects, if your guys and the academics have got no understanding of what are the types of protocols and best practices that have to be used when you build a road right through the middle of a traditional homeland, which has got burial grounds and it's got all sorts of sensitivity areas kind of thing. You don't do that without, and that's where professionals come in. If you don't have that experience, we can supplement that experience. That's where the simulations come in specifically. If you have no knowledge of the impact of climate credit, climate change, or carbon credits, or ESG, and all of these sort of things. Those are all the kind of questions that you will a professional will be expected to have some knowledge of. That's what we do with our clients. We fill that gap. All of our projects, all of our soft skills, all of our human factors will fill those areas. But we don't know what the gaps are. We don't know what MTN people do. I've seen your specialized list of tasks and activities and projects, etc., but I don't know what's underneath the bonnet and what people are getting involved in from a project management perspective, a procurement perspective, integrated project resources, working with multidisciplinary firms, all of those things. That's why the position audit is so critical for us, because we don't know what you people know, and we need to get it onto an easel where we can look at it, and then we can spot the quick wins. So things like governance and ethics, great. We can get Sisi and Tom. They've got a whole course on it. We can then bring in a CPD related course on governance and ethics, or we've got someone in our wheelhouse that we could do that if it's on ESG. So that's what we'll do. Mike, does that answer your question?
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, I've just got one more question. And that is, you talk about CPD points a lot, and just can you explain how CPD points will relate to people that are not professionals yet?
100%. It's very, very quick. The CPD stands for continuing professional development. So for everybody in here, whether you're a doctor, an engineer, an accountant, a lawyer, an architect, a project manager, you are required to do what's known as CPD, or continuing professional development. That's after you have registered as a professional. It used to be incorrectly named as outcome number 11 with the EXA framework. It was called CPD, but with the new changes now, it has been correctly renamed to IPD, which is initial professional development. So all of the candidates in here, whether you academics, whether you alternative route, whether you are the mature candidate, so you've got baseline qualifications, but you just missed your sell-by date, and now you're going to be quickly playing some catch-up, all of you will be required to show that over the last 4 years to 24 years, you've been gathering initial professional development, which means you're doing courses that are related to your area of work. It could be Excel, building models. It could be doing a survey course. It could be you could be reading magazines. So within Sisi, I'll see your hand, Tom. Within Sisi, they have a whole lot of journals that you can read. So you can download journals on traffic management, etc. Once we know if you've got the ability to capture any IPD, then you can capture that. So Mike, one of the 11 outcomes is you need to be able to show that over the years you have invested in yourself, or your employer has invested in you, and they've continually professionally tried to update you and educate you. That's really good. So CPD is post-registration, IPD is pre-registration, and all of the stuff that we are doing with EXA and Sisi, and you will be getting access to all of the soft skills, the human factors, all of that stuff, plus the program, it automatically comes with CPD registration, which is the higher level, which is attractive to all of your mentors. So all the people that are playing a mentor role will get a big win and a bonus, because they will get the maximum CPD, but CPD overrides IPD. So that all the candidates will also get it. They will use it as their IPD submission. So you won't have to worry. You almost won't have to worry about additional training required. It will be provided during the course, but anything else you're doing of a specialized nature, that is of a training thing, that's where your training and experience summary that Johan, the TES that Johan's talking about, that's where we need to capture all of those courses, all of those certificates, etc., all of those Sisi gatherings, as someone said then in the corner, all those Sisi gatherings, all of those seminars, that's all your IPD. Tom, you got a hand up?
Yeah, I think Phil and Mark, I mean, in particular in the category of the NUC people who have no formal qualification, you use the IPD stroke CPD as an opportunity to acquire missing gaps in your knowledge. So as Sisi members, or even the general engineering community, we even run student webinars. The last one was on people talking about international careers and the kind of projects they work on, not really relevant, but the one before was Ravi, Ronnie and the Sanral team talking about the N3 and N2 projects. And then we have it on, you know, you guys are traffic and transportation specialists, but it could be on somebody who's done the raising of a spillway of a dam wall. So you're gathering and accumulating missing nuggets of knowledge in your engineering journey. And I think that's the EXA wants to see, that having obtained a qualification, be it matric or anything hereafter, have you shown that you can go and continue to learn and acquire missing gaps? None of us know everything. In fact, we know very little compared to the knowledge that is out there. How are we gathering additional knowledge, and through what form? So there are lots of things that you can do, like that project management course that your Centurion team did. That will show when you manage projects in the workplace, you've done formal training to give you the backup. When somebody uses the word PMBOK, it's not a swear word. People will understand that that means the project management body of knowledge, as an example. That's the kind of terminology that EXA will look for in the conversation that they have with you, particularly during the interview stage.
Tom, I think just important to answer Ndokona's question there is he's attended SciC gatherings listing CPDs, and they take your details at the beginning, and then when he checks at a later stage on the EXA website, he can't see that the CPDs are relevant there. So I can't answer for the SciC or the EXA thing, but what I must say very importantly is CPD and IPD is not to be taken lightly. We as accredited CPD providers like SciC, we are now through SciC, we are an accredited CPD provider. We've got a unique verification number, which means we get audited by EXA. SciC get audited at the higher level by EXA. We have to show that we are not giving out credentials like sweeties. It's really, really important to understand that we as accredited service providers, we've got BBBE accreditation, we've got EXA accreditation, we've got CETA accreditation. If we are shown that we are just tossing out qualifications and CPDs like sweeties, we will just not continue. So Ndakona, to answer your question, one of the things that is very important, if you log in to an event that is advertising CPD, you have to be in that event from the beginning to the end. What happens in my experience with the youngsters very often these days is they see that there's free sweeties available in terms of CPD. They log into the event and then they pull out quite quickly thereafter because they think the login got them the IPD. So the ticket to the ball, it doesn't get you the dance with the pretty girl, okay? The ticket to the ball means you just get into the dance hall. You only get the dance with the pretty girl if you stay there the whole course of the whole show. And that's and I hope that hasn't come across as sexist anyway. I meant it in jest. You have to stay. You have to stay for the event.
Yeah, one other thing is that if you attend a CPD validated event, that's the terminology, it will have a validation number. The process is that organizations like SciC or any of the VAs and universities, who are all licensing bodies, send the validated event details to EXA, but it doesn't get logged to your profile. You've got to go into the CPD platform or portal, select the events you attended. Then if you are subjected to an audit, you've got to have the certificate or the attendance register or proof of payment or whatever. But events that are SciC validated, we've got an automated system that generates the certificates, like for Whitby. The ladies in the session, Phil will know, within a day or two of a Whitby session, you receive a certificate to say you attended, what was our last one, you know, what, I can't remember the lady's name now, but the lady that rode a horse and fell off and sorted her brain out and whatnot, Phil. You then get a certificate for 0.1 point. You've got to keep all of those somewhere in a folder and know that if you go to EXA's website, which is the event that you attended, because there are lots of people on the non-ethical side that are selecting activities and engagement, and when they are audited, EXA comes to the service provider and says, you know, M4S, you've given Mr. Mike Helens 5 CPD points for participating in a Category C mentorship program. Can you show me what he did, how he did, when he did, etc., etc., etc. So as Phil says, It's got to be done ethically and it's got to be done correctly. But you will not automatically have your activities logged on X's side. The X is the regulatory body. They check and control you, and then the VAs are the providers on the other side. We are two separate entities.
Yeah, that's very important, Indicon. I hope that all made sense. It's not X's responsibility to track and monitor every individual's learning events. So they're not an LMS or learner management system. If the event is advertised as CPD, it will be available to get the number will be available, and then you can record that on your CES. So you can on your training on your TES, sorry, your training experience summary, you can report that on this particular day at this particular event from this particular provider, and we'll teach you how to write those up. But the validation, if you get audited, and when you go to do your professional registration, you can't say, but I was at that event and X and never had my things. You won't get the benefit of it. You have to have made sure that you've acquired the certificate. You've got the certificate so that you've got it in your audit trail, and it forms part of your pack against your TES. You only get the number from the professional body that's offering the CPD. So I hope that answers the questions on there. So Mike, just to clarify, CPD is the post-registration term, but it more than fulfills exactly the same process for the IPD, which is the pre-registration period. And so all of you as both academics and as mature candidates, or as alternative route candidates, or even the traditional route, the standard sort of process, make sure that wherever you think you've done a course, and remember, it doesn't have to be CPD. You don't have to have CPD for it. It may be a provider doing something highly specialized that is never registered for it, but as long as it's aligned to your work that you do. So if you were doing something on weights and measures or something like that, let's say, and looking at managing the vehicle, the E80 wheel loads or whatever they used to be called, and they don't have as recorded, as long as it's relevant to your line of work, and over a 20-year period, you will have a substantial number of things. But don't record your cake icing and your standard 3 swimming certificate, because those are not going to be relevant, to be absolutely silly. Mike, I hope that answers it. It's a way of showing EXA that beyond the work you were doing, you and your employer were investing in building your knowledge base so that you could take on increasing levels of responsibility. That's really the point behind it.
No, I got it, Phil. Thanks. All clear. Thank you.
Okay, so boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, academics and earthlings, we've come to the end of the time, but I haven't really let Celestine do her thing. So Celestine, I'm going to suggest that we all shut up and just hand over. Are you ready to go, or are you load-shedded out of existence?
So I want to make a proposal though, actually.
I didn't know you cared. Thank you, my darling. I accept.
Well, only if it includes that trip to the to watch Arsenal. Unless that is on the cards, no. So my proposal is, I don't want us to rush through the goal setting. I'm also very much aware that today has really been an information overload. And I think a lot of the candidates are still busy with their experience audits. So I want to ask, next week, we've got another such information session. And then the week after, on the 13th, we've got our first soft skill session. So my proposal is that we leave it for next week. But then I'm going to ask you, Phil, with permission, that I run the show. You kind of get carried away and then the time just runs away with us. So then we can go into the goal setting, and we can also orientate people around, now that they've started, the audits, the experience audits, etc. How do we then go with the information that we have? How do we then use that in order for us to set goals and how to capture it onto the system?
That's good. Just to, this is going to probably come as a hell of a shock, but next week is the 13th. So
I just sent you the message as well.
Yeah. So
guys, it can be.
So what I'm going to suggest is we do a double act. You do the thing, and I'll be chup still, and I'll get Shell to cable tie me down in the kitchen. And then when you're done with the goal setting and all the rest of it, I can quickly go and then we can do 6 roles with the mentor. If that makes sense to you.
Absolutely perfect, Phil. I've got a lot of witnesses what you've just said, so I'll start the first 30 minutes. We normally do have an hour for the soft skill, so I'll use the first 20 minutes, 10 minutes for questions and answers, and then we can go into the soft skills.
Okay, but listen, in this new relationship we got, I'm happy to share 45 minutes and 45. So we'll work it out. We'll work it out.
Okay. No, perfect.
Well,
we'll have
I'm handing over to you to sing D-Stem and close out quietly, or in Nkosi Sikeleli. So over to you. Thanks, Celestine.
I'll do the STEM justice, Phil. Guys, thank you very much for our session this afternoon. I know that every week there's more and more information, but I'm hoping that with all the sessions as we're going through, the mud is getting a little bit clearer. To Tom, thank you so much for taking us through that requirements for the alternative route. I am going to take that document and just kind of synthesize some of the information out of that so that we can also make sure that we send a more condensed version through to the candidates. Johan, I think your value has been really in terms of giving us a little bit of clarity on the whole route for the academics. We have been, like Phil and Tom has mentioned, we have been waiting to get feedback from Francisca that's coming back this week. But you've also given us a point of departure. So thank you so much for the value that you've added to today's session. I think for the academics sitting in the room, it's also slowly but surely our light bulbs is starting to pop. And yeah, as I said, as we're going to continue, and as you also start completing your experience audits, transferring that to the actual exit document is going to become even better. And once we've got that clarified, we can start setting up the sessions with the mentors so that you then start setting your goals. And then next week, I will take you through the goal setting process. Phil is going to do our session on the 6 roles of the mentor. And as we go along, we'll make sure that we just clear and bring clarity to all the muddy things that's happening around us. So thank you very much for this afternoon. And then we'll see you next week. Thanks, Phil, Tom, Johan, and everybody that was part of the session. Thank you.
Mike,
Thanks,
anybody from MTN, Sunrail, Michelle, anybody want to say anything as we before we close out?
Nothing from me. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Michelle. Mike, any last thoughts there?
All good, thanks, Phil.
Okay, guys. Okay, thanks, Celestine. Great job. If anybody's got a last question, pop it into the chat quickly or put your hand up very quickly. Otherwise, we'll love and leave you to go and have a lovely Wednesday.
Awesome.
Nothing coming up.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Fantastic. Okay, thanks all.
Thanks,
Cheers.
everybody. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.